The frozen surface of Keth 7 had never looked so beautiful. Yorath stood among the survivors and breathed the thin, cold air. It tasted like life. It tasted like victory. Around him, Valorians and humans sat or lay on the ice. Some were treating wounds. Others were simply staring at the sky, grateful to see stars instead of stone ceilings. The ruins were gone, collapsed into a pit of darkness that would never reveal its secrets again. The warden was destroyed. The nightmare was over. Captain Ellis walked over to Yorath. The human commander looked older than he had a few days ago. The burden of command had taken its toll. So many of his people were gone. Sergeant Grant, Ellis said quietly. Private Morrison. Lieutenant Cole, though she hung on until the end. 7 others. We lost so many. As did we, Yorath replied. 4 of my soldiers will not be returning to their families. Sub-Commander Taylor survived, but her injuries are severe. They stood in silence for a moment, 2 commanders sharing the weight of loss. I owe you an apology, Yorath said finally. My people's fear caused the initial conflict. If the scientist has not attacked your camp, none of this would have happened. Ellis shook his head. Fear makes people do terrible things. We retaliated with equal violence. The blame is shared, but the price was not. Ellis looked at the survivors scattered across the ice. His people. His responsibility. No, the price was not equal. But that is war. That is always war. Yorath activated his communication device. Starwing, this is Commander Yorath. Do you read me? The response came through clearly. Commander, we read you. We have been trying to reach you for hours. What is your status? The outpost situation has been resolved. The threat has been neutralized. But we have casualties, and we have survivors who require immediate transport. Understood. We are sending landing craft to your position now. Yorath paused. Starwing, be advised. The survivors include members of a previously unknown species. They call themselves humans. They are not hostile. Repeat, they are not hostile. They will be evacuated along with our personnel. There was a moment of silence on the channel. Confirmed, Commander. We will prepare medical facilities for all survivors. Yorath ended the transmission and looked at Ellis. My ship will take you aboard. From there, we can discuss your situation with my superiors. And what exactly is our situation? Ellis asked. Yorath considered the question carefully. You are stranded far from your home. Your ship is destroyed. You have no way to return to your people on your own. You paint a bleak picture, but it is not hopeless. The Valorian Empire values strength and courage. Your people have demonstrated both in abundance. I believe there is a place for you in our territory, if you want it. Ellis raised an eyebrow. You would accept us? Just like that. Not just like that. There will be negotiations, discussions, perhaps disagreements. But I will advocate for you before the High Command. I will tell them what I witnessed here. And what did you witness? Yorath looked at Private Lawson, who was helping bandage a Valorian soldier's wounds. He looked at Dr. Perry, who was already taking notes about everything she had seen in the ruins. He looked at the humans and Valorians sitting together, sharing water and rations as if they had been allies for years instead of days. I witnessed a species that fights with primitive weapons, but with modern hearts. I witnessed soldiers who die for each other without hesitation. I witnessed a people who refuse to give up, no matter how desperate the situation. He turned back to Ellis. I witnessed humans, and I believe the galaxy needs to know about you. The landing craft arrived within the hour. Valorian medical teams rushed to help the wounded. Both species were treated with equal care and attention. Yorath watched as Lawson was carried aboard on a stretcher, still conscious, still giving orders to the medics about how to treat her own injuries. "She will be fine," Dr. Perry said, appearing beside Yorth. "Amy is too stubborn to die." Stubbornness seems to be a human trait. Perry smiled. It was the first genuine smile Yorth had seen from her. "You could call it that. We prefer to call it determination." The journey to the Star Wing took less than an hour. The cruiser's medical bay was soon filled with patients from both species. Valorian doctors worked alongside human medics, sharing knowledge and techniques. It was a small beginning, but it was a beginning. Yorth spent the transit time preparing his report to the High Command. He described the events on KEF-7 in precise detail. The attack on the Outpost, the discovery of the humans, the true nature of the Warden, the alliance that formed in the darkness beneath the ice. But he also included his personal observations, his assessment of human capabilities, his recommendations for how the Empire should proceed. He wrote about their endurance, how they fought through injuries that would have incapacitated Valorians, how they kept moving, kept fighting, kept refusing to accept defeat. He wrote about their loyalty, how they never abandoned wounded comrades, how they treated strangers like family after just a few days of shared hardship. He wrote about their sacrifice. Sergeant Grant charging into certain death to buy time for others. Lawson planting her last explosive to save everyone. Lieutenant Cole fighting until her final breath. And he wrote about their potential. A species that could master interstellar travel. A species that could adapt to any environment. A species that could form bonds with aliens they had only just met. His final paragraph was the most important. The humans are dangerous. This cannot be denied. They fight with a ferocity that is unsettling to witness. They do not surrender. They do not retreat. When pushed to the edge, they push back harder. Any civilization that makes enemies of them will regret it deeply. But they are also capable of great compassion, great loyalty, great courage. They protected Valorian soldiers as if they were their own. They mourned our dead as they mourned theirs. If we are wise, we will call them friends. We will welcome them into our territory. We will learn from them as they learn from us. If we are foolish, if we try to exploit or subjugate them, we will learn a different lesson. We will learn why the galaxy should fear humanity. I recommend friendship. I recommend alliance. I recommend that we give these humans a home among the stars until they can find their way back to their own. The Star Wing arrived at Valorian Station 3 days later. Yorth personally escorted the human survivors to temporary quarters that had been prepared for them. They were simple rooms, but they were clean and warm and safe. Captain Ellis stood at a viewport, looking out at the unfamiliar stars. The station orbited a planet with green continents and blue oceans. It looked almost like Earth, almost like home. Beautiful, is it not? Yorth asked, joining him at the viewport. It is, Ellis replied. Different from Earth, but beautiful in its own way. You will find your way back eventually. Your species is resourceful. I have no doubt you will build new ships, find new paths among the stars. Ellis nodded slowly. And in the meantime? In the meantime, you have a home here, among the Valorians, among friends. Ellis extended his hand. Yorth took it. 2 species, 2 commanders, 1 alliance forged in blood and fire and desperate hope. In another room, Amy Lawson was recovering from surgery. Her leg would heal. The doctor said she might even fight again one day. She lay in her bed and looked at the ceiling and thought about Sergeant Grant, about the others who had not made it. Their sacrifice had meant something. The humans were alive. The humans were safe. The humans had found allies in a galaxy they had never known existed. It was not the mission they had set out on. It was not the future any of them had expected. But it was a beginning. A beginning was enough. The stars outside the viewport burned with ancient light. Somewhere among them was Earth. Somewhere among them was home. The humans would find it again someday. But for now, they stood among new friends, in a new place with new hope. They had survived the frozen moon. They had defeated the Warden. They had proven themselves to the Valorians, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The path to the central chamber was a nightmare made real. Every corridor was trapped. Every junction was defended. The Warden threw everything it had at the combined force, as if sensing that this assault was different from the others. Yorith moved beside Captain Ellis, both commanders leading from the front. Behind them came a mixed team of humans and Valorians. They had trained together for 2 days, learning each other's combat styles, building trust through shared effort. It was not enough time. It would have to be enough. The first major obstacle was a junction guarded by heavy combat drones. These were larger than the ones they had faced before, with thick armor and powerful energy weapons. The Warden had learned from previous encounters. It had upgraded its defenses. Sergeant Grant led the human assault team. He was a stocky man with quick hands and a quicker mind. Yorith had watched him during training and had been impressed by his tactical instincts. "We need to draw their fire," Grant said. "Create an opening for the main force." "You will be exposed," Yorith replied. "The casualties would be severe." Grant shrugged. "That is the job. Buy time. Make the opening. Let others finish the mission." Before Yorith could respond, Grant was moving. His team followed without hesitation. They broke from cover and charged toward the drones, firing their weapons and throwing explosives. The drones turned to engage them, their energy weapons lighting up the corridor. It worked. The drones focused on the human assault team, leaving the main junction undefended. "Move!" Ellis shouted. "Everyone move, now." Yorith led his soldiers through the opening. Valorians and humans poured into the junction and pressed forward toward the next corridor. Behind them, the sound of combat continued. Grant and his team were still fighting, still buying time. Then there was silence. Ellis stopped and looked back. His face was hard, but his eyes showed pain. "Keep moving. Do not let their sacrifice mean nothing." Yorith understood. Among his people, such sacrifice was rare. Lives were carefully preserved. Risks were calculated and minimized. But these humans threw themselves into danger willingly, not because they did not value their own lives, but because they valued others more. They pressed deeper into the ruins. The architecture changed as they advanced. The walls became smoother. The technology became more advanced. They were approaching the heart of the complex. Private Amy Lawson walked beside Dr. Perry, protecting the scientist as they moved. Despite her youth, Lawson had proven herself in the previous days of fighting. She was fast and smart, with an instinct for danger that had saved lives more than once. "How much further?" Lawson asked. Dr. Perry consulted a handheld device. 200 meters. The central chamber should be directly ahead. The Warden made one final attempt to stop them. The corridor ahead suddenly came alive with defense systems. Automated turrets emerged from the walls. Energy barriers flickered into existence. A massive construct of metal and light blocked the path. It was humanoid in shape, but twice the height of any person, with weapons built into every limb. "That is new," Lawson said quietly. "The Warden's primary combat form," Dr. Perry explained. "It has been protecting the central chamber since the beginning. We never got close enough to see it before." The construct raised its arms. Energy crackled around its limbs. "Scatter," Ellis commanded. The team dove in all directions as the construct opened fire. Beams of pure energy cut through the air, vaporizing stone and metal wherever they touched. 2 Valorian soldiers were killed instantly. A human fell with a scream. Yorith returned fire, but his weapon seemed to have no effect on the construct's armor. "We cannot hurt it. Our weapons are useless." "Then we need to get past it," Ellis replied. "Perry, how long do you need at the control core?" 5 minutes. Maybe less if the interface is intuitive. "Then we buy you 5 minutes. Lawson, get her to that chamber. Whatever happens, do not stop." Lawson grabbed Dr. Perry's arm and pulled her toward a side passage. The construct turned to pursue them, but Yorith stepped into its path. "Over here," he shouted. "Focus on me." The construct hesitated, then turned its weapons toward Yorith. He dove behind a pillar as energy beams scorched the air around him. Ellis joined him on the other side of the corridor. They exchanged a look. No words were needed. They both understood what had to be done. For the next several minutes, Yorith and Ellis led the remaining soldiers in a desperate dance of survival. They moved constantly, never staying in one place long enough for the construct to target them. They fired their weapons not to damage it, but to distract it. They sacrificed position after position, giving ground slowly, buying seconds with every step. More soldiers fell. Valorian and human alike. The construct was relentless. It did not tire. It did not hesitate. It simply kept advancing, kept killing, kept trying to reach the central chamber. Then the lights changed. Throughout the corridor, the ancient technology began to flicker. The energy barriers wavered and collapsed. The automated turrets retracted into the walls. The construct froze in mid-motion. Its weapons powered down. Its limbs locked in place. Dr. Perry's voice came over the communication channel. "Shutdown sequence initiated. The warden is going offline." Yorith allowed himself a moment of relief. But it was short-lived. New alarms began to sound. The walls started to shake. Dust and debris fell from the ceiling. "What is happening?" Ellis demanded. Perry's voice was strained with panic. "There is a failsafe. A self-destruct protocol. If the warden cannot protect the ruins, it destroys them. We have maybe 10 minutes before this entire complex collapses." Yorith felt the ground heave beneath his feet. 10 minutes. They were deep in the ruins, far from any exit they knew. "Everyone move," Ellis commanded. "Back the way we came. Double time." They ran. Soldiers helped wounded comrades. No one was left behind. The tunnels shook around them, and pieces of the ceiling began to fall. Ancient architecture that had stood for millions of years was tearing itself apart. Yorith found himself running beside Lawson. The young soldier was limping, blood seeping through a bandage on her leg. But she kept moving. She kept pushing forward. "Why do you not stop?" Yorith asked between breaths. "Your wound is severe. You are slowing us down." Lawson looked at him with fierce eyes. "Sergeant Grant died so we could reach that chamber. The others died so we could shut down the warden. I'm not going to let them down by dying in a tunnel." Yorith had no response. Among his people, such stubbornness would be considered foolish, illogical. But watching Lawson force herself forward on a damaged leg, he saw something different. He saw something powerful. They reached a junction where the tunnels had partially collapsed. Captain Ellis was there, helping soldiers climb over the debris. "This way," he shouted. "There is a secondary exit 200 meters ahead." The ground heaved again. A section of wall collapsed, blocking the corridor behind them. There was no going back now. Yorith saw Dr. Perry struggling to climb the debris. He moved to her side and lifted her, carrying her over the obstruction. On the other side, Taylor took Perry from his arms and helped her forward. They pressed on. The shaking grew worse. The ceiling was failing in multiple places now. They had minutes at most. The secondary exit appeared ahead. A narrow passage leading up toward the surface. Cold air flowed down from above. Freedom was close, but the passage was blocked. A massive piece of ancient machinery had fallen across the opening, trapping them inside. Ellis examined the obstruction. His face was grim. "We cannot move this. It must weigh 10 tons. Yorith felt despair creep into his hearts. They had come so far. They had sacrificed so much. And now they would die here, crushed beneath the ruins of a dead civilization. Then Lawson spoke. "Everyone get back. I still have 1 charge left." She pulled an explosive from her belt. The last of their demolition equipment. "That might bring down more debris," Yorith warned. "Or it might clear the passage," Lawson replied. "Only one way to find out." She planted the charge and retreated. Everyone took cover. The explosion was tremendous. Stone and metal flew in all directions. The ceiling groaned and cracked, but when the dust cleared, the passage was open. "Go!" Alice shouted. "Everyone go, now." They climbed toward the surface as the ruins collapsed behind them. The roar of destruction followed them every step. Yorith's lungs burned. His legs screamed. But he kept moving. Then he felt cold air on his face. He saw stars above. He was on the surface. He turned and helped pull the last survivors out of the passage, just as the ground behind them gave way completely. The ancient ruins were gone, buried forever beneath the ice. They had made it. Yorith stood on the frozen surface and looked at the humans around him. Battered, bleeding, exhausted, but alive. They were alive. Denna led them through twisting corridors and narrow passages. She moved with the confidence of someone who had mapped these tunnels through painful experience. Behind them, the grinding sound followed like the breath of some massive beast stirring from slumber. Yorith stayed close to her, his weapon ready, his soldiers falling into formation behind them. He had many questions, but survival came first. The questions could wait until they were safe. The tunnels opened into a wider chamber. Here, Yorith saw the human camp. It was a collection of salvaged equipment and makeshift shelters, arranged in defensive positions around a central fire that burned in a metal container. Faces turned toward them as they entered. Human faces, tired and suspicious and ready for violence. A man stepped forward. He was older than Denna, with gray in his hair and lines carved deep into his face. He carried himself like a commander, with the weight of responsibility visible in every movement. "Lieutenant Cole, you brought guests." "Captain Ellis, these are Valorians. From the Outpost on the surface." "There has been a misunderstanding." Captain Howard Ellis looked at Yorith with eyes that had seen too much suffering. "A misunderstanding. Is that what we are calling it now?" Yorith stepped forward and extended his hands in a gesture of peace. "I am Commander Yorith Velsoren. I believe both our peoples have been manipulated into conflict by external forces. The true enemy is not each other." Pretty words from someone whose people shot first. "My people were scientists," Yorith replied. "They were afraid. They made a terrible mistake. But they are dead now, killed in your retaliation. Is that not punishment enough?" Captain Ellis was silent for a long moment. The grinding sound in the distance grew louder, and the ground beneath their feet trembled slightly. "The warden is awake," Ellis said finally. "Whatever differences we have, they do not matter right now. That thing will kill us all if we do not work together." "Then tell me about this warden," Yorith said. "What are we facing?" A woman emerged from one of the makeshift shelters. She was small and thin, with glasses perched on her nose and dirt smeared across her face. Her eyes held the sharp intelligence of a scientist. "I am Dr. Linda Perry," she said. "I have been studying the ruins since we arrived. The Warden is an automated defense system created by whatever species built this place. It has been dormant for millions of years, running on minimal power. But our arrival seems to have triggered its activation protocols." "An ancient guardian," Taylor said. protecting the ruins from intruders. More than that, Dr. Perry continued, it learns. It adapts. When we first encountered it, it sent simple drones against us. Now it uses complex tactics, ambushes, traps. It is studying us as much as we are studying it. Yoreth felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. And the research outpost. Did the warden attack them too? Dr. Perry nodded. The scientists triggered deep sensors when they began excavating a new section of ruins. The warden responded by sending drones to the surface. The attack on the outpost was not our doing. It was the warden. We only came to the surface afterward, looking for supplies and help. By then, your people saw us as the enemy. The pieces fell into place in Yoreth's mind. The researchers had awakened something dangerous. The warden had struck. The humans had arrived in the aftermath and been blamed for the destruction. Fear and confusion had done the rest. We have been fighting each other while the true threat watched and waited, Yoreth said. That seems to be the pattern, Captain Ellis replied. And now we are all trapped down here together. The warden has sealed the main exits. We have been trying to find another way out for weeks. A young human soldier approached. She was barely more than a girl, with a bandage wrapped around her arm and exhaustion written across her face. Her name patch read Lawson. Captain, sensors are picking up movement in Sector 7. Multiple contacts. The warden is sending another wave. Ellis turned to his people. Everyone to defensive positions. Sergeant Grant, take your team to the North Corridor. Lawson, stay with Dr. Perry and protect the equipment. Yoreth watched the humans move. They were tired and wounded and outnumbered by whatever force the warden could send against them. But they moved without hesitation. They moved like soldiers who had long ago accepted that retreat was not an option. My team will join yours, Yoreth said. Ellis looked at him with surprise. You would fight beside us? The enemy of my enemy, Yoreth replied. Besides, I have questions. I want both of us to survive long enough for me to ask them. A thin smile crossed Ellis's face. Fair enough. Take your people to the East Corridor. That is where the heaviest attacks usually come from. Yoreth led his soldiers to the position Ellis had indicated. The corridor was long and narrow, with ancient pillars providing cover on both sides. It was a good defensive position. The humans had chosen their camp location wisely. The attack came. Within minutes, the warden's drones flooded into the corridor like a metallic tide. They were small and fast, with multiple legs and cutting tools that sliced through armor like paper. Yoreth's soldiers opened fire, their energy weapons cutting down the first wave. But more followed. Always more. Then the humans arrived. Sergeant Paul Grant led a team of 5 soldiers into the corridor from a side passage. They carried their primitive projectile weapons and something else. Explosives, crude but effective. Down. Grant shouted. Yoreth's team dropped to the ground as the humans threw their explosives into the massive drones. The detonations were tremendous. Metal fragments flew through the air. The drone advance faltered and broke. Yoreth pushed himself up and stared at the destruction. The humans had turned the tide in seconds, with nothing more than explosive charges and perfect timing. Grant walked over to him and offered a hand. Yoreth took it and allowed the human to pull him to his feet. Not bad for primitives, right? Grant said with a grin. Yoreth looked at the scattered remains of the drones. I am beginning to understand why the warden sees you as a threat. More attacks came throughout the night. Yoreth lost track of how many waves the warden sent against them. Each time, the combined force of Valorians and humans held the line. Each time, they paid a price in blood and exhaustion. During a brief lull, Yoreth sat beside Captain Ellis near the central fire. Both commanders were tired beyond words, but neither could sleep. Your people fight well, Yoreth said. We have had practice. 3 months in these tunnels, fighting every day just to survive. A person either learns to fight or dies. I have never seen a species with such endurance, such determination. Ellis stared into the flames. Humans have a saying, when there is no way out, the only option is to go through. We do not give up. It is not in our nature. Yorth considered this. Among Valorians, strategic retreat was considered wisdom. Survival was prioritized above all else. But these humans seemed to operate on different principles. They clung to each other. They refused to abandon their wounded. They fought even when logic said they should surrender. Dr. Perry believes she can shut down the warden, Alice continued. There is a central chamber deeper in the ruins. A control core. If we can reach it, she might be able to end this. What are our chances? Bad. The path is heavily defended. We have tried twice before and failed both times. Lost good people. Alice paused. But what choice do we have? Stay here and die slowly? At least trying gives us a chance. Yorth nodded. Then we try. Together. Ellis extended his hand. Yorth looked at it for a moment, then clasped it in his own. A gesture of alliance. A bridge between species. Together, Yorth agreed. Somewhere in the darkness, the warden waited. But for the first time since he had arrived on this frozen moon, Yorth felt something close to hope. The tunnel mouth was exactly where Kavath had described. A dark opening in the ice, perfectly circular, descending into blackness. Ancient symbols were carved into the walls, worn by time but still visible. Whatever civilization had built this place, they had wanted it to last forever. Yorth led his team into the darkness. Their lights cut through the black, revealing walls of smooth stone that seemed to absorb the glow rather than reflect it. The air grew warmer as they descended. The ice gave way to rock. The rock gave way to metal. Whoever had built these tunnels had technology that made Valorian engineering look primitive. The passage twisted and turned, branching off in multiple directions. Yorth followed the freshest tracks in the dust. Footprints, many of them. Some were clearly Valorian, dragging and stumbling. Others were different, heavier, more confident. These were the footprints of the attackers. Teyla walked beside him, her weapon ready, her 4 eyes scanning every shadow. The architecture does not match any known species, she said quietly. This predates the Valorian Empire by millions of cycles. Perhaps tens of millions. Focus on the mission, Yorth replied. History can wait. Lives cannot. They moved deeper into the complex. The tunnels opened into larger chambers filled with strange machines. Consoles covered with buttons and screens. Pillars that hummed with dormant energy. Everything was covered in dust, but some of it had been disturbed recently. The attackers had passed through here. They had touched these ancient devices. One of the soldiers spotted something ahead. Commander, movement. Yorth raised his fist, signaling the team to halt. He activated his optical enhancers and peered into the darkness ahead. Something was there. Multiple figures, crouched behind fallen pillars and overturned machines. They had weapons pointed toward the Valorian team. We know you are there, Yorth called out. We have come for our people. Release the prisoners, and we will not harm you. Silence. Then a voice came back. It was harsh and rough, speaking a language Yorth did not recognize. His translator struggled for a moment before producing words he could understand. You are not welcome here. Turn back or die. Yorth felt his scales tighten. Whoever these creatures were, they were not interested in negotiation. But he had to try. We do not want conflict. We want our people returned safely. Nothing more. The response was a burst of projectile fire. Metal slugs screamed through the air, slamming into walls and pillars with tremendous force. Yoreth and his team dove for cover. "Return fire," Yoreth commanded. "Non-lethal if possible. I want prisoners." His soldiers opened fire with their energy weapons. The blue bolts lit up the darkness, revealing the attackers for brief moments. Yoreth saw them clearly for the first time. They were bipedal, just as Kaveth had described. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes set in flat faces covered with strange flexible skin. They wore combat armor and moved with trained precision. But what struck Yoreth most was their faces. There was no fear in their expressions, only determination. Only the cold focus of soldiers who had accepted that they might die. That the firefight was intense but brief. The attackers were outnumbered and outgunned. Their projectile weapons were deadly but slower to fire than Valorian energy rifles. One by one, they fell to stun bolts or retreated deeper into the ruins. When the last of them had fled, Yoreth moved forward to check the fallen. Most had escaped, but one remained. A female, based on her body structure. She had been hit by a stun bolt and was struggling to remain conscious. Her weapon lay just out of reach. Yoreth knelt beside her and removed the weapon from the area. He studied her face. It was covered in a thin layer of sweat, and her chest heaved with heavy breathing. Even stunned and defeated, her eyes showed no surrender. They showed defiance. "Can you understand me?" Yoreth asked. The female glared at him. Then she spoke, her words slurred by the effects of the stun. "I understand you. Does not mean I will talk to you. I need answers. What species are you? Where do you come from? Why did you attack our outpost?" The female laughed. It was a bitter sound, full of pain and anger. "We attacked you? Your people attacked us first. Killed 7 of ours. We were defending ourselves." Yoreth felt confusion wash over him. "That is not possible. Our outpost was a research station. Scientists. They had no weapons. They posed no threat to anyone. Then explain why they fired on our camp. Explain why they sent drones to survey our position. Explain why our people are dead." Taylor stepped forward. "Commander, she might be lying. A deception to confuse us." "I am not lying," the female said. She pushed herself up slightly, wincing from the pain. "My name is Lieutenant Denna Cole. I am a soldier. I do not lie to enemies. I kill enemies, but I do not lie to them." Yoreth studied her face. He had interrogated many prisoners over his career. He had learned to recognize deception in the subtle movements of eyes and mouths. This creature, this Denna Cole, was not lying. She believed every word she was saying. "Tell me more," he said. "Tell me everything. From the beginning." Denna took a deep breath. The fire in her eyes dimmed slightly, replaced by exhaustion. "We are humans. Our ship was traveling through hyperspace when something pulled us out. Some kind of force. We crashed on this moon 3 months ago. Half our crew died in the impact. The rest of us have been trying to survive ever since. You are not from known space. I have no idea what known space means to you. But we are from Earth, a planet in a system you have probably never heard of. We were an exploration vessel, deep space mission, and now we are stranded here, hunted by something in these ruins." Yoreth felt the weight of her words. Humans, a species not in the galactic registry, a species from beyond the borders of mapped space, a species that had arrived here by accident, not by design. "The outpost," he said. "Why did you attack it?" "We did not attack first. Your research drones found our camp. Then someone opened fire on us. We lost people. We had to respond." Yoreth thought back to Kaveth's words. The scientists had been studying the ruins. They had detected unusual energy readings. Had they found the human camp? Had they, in their fear, attacked without thinking? There has been a terrible mistake, Yoreth said slowly. Mistake. Dennis spat the word. Tell that to the 7 bodies we buried in the ice. Yoreth was about to respond when a sound echoed through the ruins. It was deep and mechanical, like the grinding of ancient gears. The walls began to vibrate. Dust fell from the ceiling. Dennis' eyes went wide with genuine terror. It is waking up. We need to move. Now. What is waking up? The thing that lives in these ruins? The thing that has been hunting us since we arrived. We call it the Warden. Denna grabbed Yoreth's arm with surprising strength. If you want to live, you will come with me. Right now. The grinding sound grew louder. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, lights began to flicker. Ancient machines were coming to life. Yoreth made his decision in an instant. Everyone move. Follow her. Go. Whatever was happening, whatever the truth was about attacks and counterattacks, it would have to wait. Something else was in these ruins. Something that threatened them all, and it was no longer sleeping. The distress signal came from the edge of known space. It was weak and broken, cutting in and out like a dying heartbeat. Commander Yoreth Velsorn stood on the bridge of the cruiser, staring and listened to the fragments of terror in that transmission. Someone was screaming. Someone was begging for help. Then there was silence. Yoreth was a tall Valorian with pale blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his face. He had served the high command for 30 cycles and had seen many strange things in the darkness between stars. But something about this signal made his scales tighten against his body. Something was wrong in a way he could not name. The outpost on Keth 7 was a small research station. It sat on a frozen moon far from any trade routes or military bases. 23 scientists lived there, studying ancient ruins that had been discovered beneath the ice. The ruins were old. Older than the Valorian Empire. Older than any civilization in the Galactic Registry. The scientists believed they might hold secrets about the species that had come before all others. Now those scientists were Silent Dot's sub-commander. Taylor Velmorn stood beside Yoreth. She was younger than him, with sharper features and a mind that moved like lightning. She had already pulled up all available data on the outpost and was scrolling through it with quick movements of her slender fingers. No scheduled communications for 3 days, she said. The last report mentioned unusual energy readings from the ruins. Nothing alarming. Routine observations. And then someone attacked them, Yoreth said. It appears so. Yoreth turned to face the viewport. The moon of Keth 7 was growing larger as they approached. It was a ball of white and gray, scarred by ancient impacts and wrapped in thin clouds of ice crystals. It looked peaceful. It looked dead. But somewhere down there, something had happened that made trained researchers scream in fear. Prepare a ground team, Yoreth ordered. Full combat equipment. I will lead them myself. Taylor looked at him with surprise. Commander, protocol suggests sending a reconnaissance drone first. Protocol did not hear that transmission, Yoreth replied. If anyone is still alive down there, they need help now. Not in an hour. Now. The landing craft touched down on the ice 200 meters from the outpost. Yoreth led 12 soldiers across the frozen ground, their boots crunching on the hard surface. The sky above was black and filled with unfamiliar stars. The cold was intense, even through their environmental suits. The outpost came into view, and Yoreth felt his heart sink. The main building was still standing, but it was damaged. Scorch marks covered the walls. Windows were shattered. One section of the roof had collapsed inward. This was not an accident. This was not equipment failure. This was violence. They found the first body near the entrance. A Valorian scientist, face down in the snow. Yoreth knelt beside the body and turned it over gently. The scientist had been killed by a projectile weapon. Not an energy blast. Not a plasma burn. A solid piece of metal had torn through his chest. Urath had never seen such a wound before. Energy weapons were the standard across all known space. Projectile weapons were considered primitive, obsolete. No advanced species used them anymore. Search the complex, he ordered his team. Find survivors. Find answers. The inside of the outpost was worse than the outside. Furniture was overturned. Equipment was smashed. More bodies lay in corridors and laboratories. All of them had been killed with the same primitive weapons. Some of them showed signs of close combat. Broken bones. Crushed skulls. Whatever had attacked this place had not relied only on weapons. It had used its own body as a tool of destruction. One of the soldiers called out from a sealed laboratory near the back of the complex. "Commander, we have a survivor." Urath moved quickly through the damaged corridors until he reached the laboratory. The door had been locked from the inside and reinforced with emergency barricades. His soldiers had cut through it with plasma torches. Inside, huddled in a corner, was a Valorian scientist. His name was Kavath Noraiden, according to his identification badge. He was shaking so badly that his scales rattled against each other. His four eyes were wide with a terror that seemed to have no end. Urath approached him slowly, keeping his hands visible and his voice soft. "Kavath, I am Commander Urath. You are safe now. Can you tell me what happened here?" Kavath looked at him, but did not seem to see him. His mouth opened and closed several times before words came out. They were barely a whisper. They came from the ruins. We did not know they were there. We did not know anything was there. And then they attacked. Who attacked? Urath asked. "What species?" "Describe them to me." Kavath's shaking grew worse. They were like nothing in the registry. Bipedal. 2 arms. 2 eyes. They moved so fast. So fast. We could not stop them. We could not even slow them down. Did they use energy weapons? Kavath shook his head violently. Projectiles. Metal projectiles. And when those ran out, they used their hands. Their bare hands. They broke through doors. They broke through walls. They broke through everything. Urath exchanged a look with Taylor, who had followed him into the laboratory. Her face showed the same confusion he felt. No known species matched this description. No known species fought with such primitive ferocity. How many of them were there? Urath asked. I do not know. Maybe 20. Maybe 30. It felt like an army. Did they take anything? Did they steal equipment or data? Kavath's eyes focused slightly. Something like clarity returned to his face, though the terror remained beneath it. They took prisoners. Lead researcher Torvath and 6 others. They did not kill everyone. They took some of them alive. Where did they take them? Back to the ruins. They dragged them into the tunnels beneath the ice. I heard Torvath screaming for help. I heard him screaming until his voice disappeared into the darkness. Urath stood up and looked around the destroyed laboratory. Whoever these attackers were, they had struck with speed and brutality that suggested military training. They had used weapons that no advanced species had touched in thousands of cycles. They had killed without mercy, but had also taken prisoners, which suggested purpose beyond simple violence. We are going after them, Urath said. We are going into those ruins. Taylor moved closer to him and lowered her voice. Commander, we do not know what we are facing. We should wait for reinforcements. We should request support from the High Command. The nearest support is 8 days away, Urath replied. Those prisoners do not have 8 days. If there is any chance of saving them, we must act now. He turned back to Kavath. The entrance to the ruins. Where is it? Kavath pointed toward the north wall of the laboratory, toward the frozen wasteland beyond. 3 kilometers. A tunnel mouth in the ice. That is where they came from. That is where they went back. Yorith nodded and activated his communication device. All units, prepare for underground operations. We are moving into hostile territory. Expect close combat. Expect the unexpected. As he led his team out of the ruined outpost and into the frozen night, Yorith could not shake the feeling that he was about to encounter something that would change everything he understood about the galaxy. Something that had been hiding in the darkness. Something that had finally revealed itself, and whatever it was waiting for him in the ancient ruins beneath the ice.